relationships. Some of it is maybe gambling. Some of it is maybe workaholism, right? In other words, very human beings, right? And we see these struggles in marriages and families too, right? But they're also in the priesthood. Like I said, sometimes I think we have a false notion that when a priest gets ordained, there's so much grace that's infused into him that somehow he becomes super holy overnight. No. Doesn't work that way. Again, he receives the sacrament of holy orders. The priesthood, yes. Christ is using him powerfully now, like through but his humanity, is still all there. And again, like I said, it has to do with the whole crisis of faith in our culture. It just is like we've seen families falling away from faith, or children and grandchildren, and marriages struggling. And well, of course, it's going to affect the priesthood too. We should not forget that. And one of the sad things I've noticed, even in my priesthood, I'm no longer a young priest. I'm in my 60s and 34 years ordained, but I just noticed that even though there's fewer priests getting ordained in terms of the absolute numbers that we really need to have a healthy church, and that's part of the, again, not to say the priest should be doing everything, but if we had more priests, wow, there'd be a lot more shepherding and fathering and spiritual direction and things like that that could be offered, but there's just not enough priests to do that. But I remember seeing, even over the last 30 years, is that not only are there fewer guys getting ordained, but the number of young priests crashing and burning. I've just heard of a recent one. Oh, Lord, it's so sad, And again, we're talking about priests who are maybe only ordained 5 or 10 years or less or whatever. And so, can you imagine? Because you think, okay, when the guys get older, they get slower and they slow. But now we got the young priests, and they're full of zeal, and they're the ones. And I guess the enemy, if he can take out a young priest, all the better, right? And again, there's different reasons for that, but part of it is the seminary formation is not necessarily an accurate environment. It's an academic setting, and so some of these guys, everything's going fine in the seminary. They have lots of support, brother seminarians, and maybe they're good at their studies. And then they get ordained, and because the bishops are desperate now, after a couple of years, they're made a pastor, and they're all alone all of a sudden, and it's like, it's not good. And that's what that's why our founder said, priests need priests. It's not healthy to be alone. Now, I don't say that as a criticism of diocesan priesthood, but that's what he recognized a lot of times. And there are some very holy diocesan priests who've managed well, But I think for many men, they need more support. And when he sensed that priests need priests, he said there might be all kinds of really good lay people in the parish and families, and they can do a lot to support a priest. But there's something about a loneliness, like a priest's experience, a lay person would not understand it, you see. So if he doesn't have another close priest brother that he can share with, and if he is a diocesan priest, he has to go and seek that out actively. In our community, we are forced to live together. And so there is that, and again, that has its own struggles too, right? I mean, but there is that accountability and that support structure, and I would not want it. I mean, so on a bad day, some days when things aren't going that well, so I wish I could just have my privacy and be all by myself, and I wouldn't have. But you know what? That wouldn't be too good for too long. Maybe for a few days. But we need one another, right? We need accountability. We need support. We need so I think that's one of the struggles that priests are facing. Then the other thing is, and maybe the Lord's just telling me, well, then stop reading the news, because I'm a bit of a news junkie, and even Catholic news, But the number of reports, they just keep coming. recently, you heard about the Pennsylvania report several years ago. Remember that? Thousands of abuse cases over 50 years. And it's just, well, now there's the Illinois report. So the Attorney General of Illinois just came out, and they came out with all these figures. And then there was this Bolivia, this priest, their story. And then there's Croatia and this other. Like I said, you read the Catholic news, it just seems to be every day there's another scandal of some priest, and it's like, when is this going to stop? When is it going to stop? It's like one country after another. Remember, in Canada, well, here in Ottawa, we had to deal with, priests here 40 years ago already. But then in the States, it was the beginning of the 2000s. They called it the Dallas Charter. That's when all of these abuse cases started to come up. And that was the United States. And then Ireland was about 10 years later. And look at the devastation in Ireland now. Ireland is just, wow. It's become worse than Quebec almost. It's like, they just cast off the faith. And now different countries in Europe. And then I have a friend who was a priest for many years in the Philippines, and he said, it hasn't even started there yet. There's not been one case. And he says, that's not because there isn't. It's just that somehow it's all been kept under wraps. And the Philippines, oh my God. because basically it's every country, right? It's like there's no holy country out there that's not going to have this effect, right? So this is, again, and these are terrible wounds on the church, right? Very terrible wounds. And first of all, for the victims. I mean, I don't want to say it's hurting the priesthood. But it's these, and we have to make reparation, and we have to do justice, and so this is forcing. It's like the Lord's allowing this to purify the church, right? He's allowing it, but it's painful. This is a painful purification we're going through, but it's necessary. So I really believe. But that's, again, I guess what I'm saying is, as a priest, it's very demoralizing and discouraging. For you guys, it must be as well, right? But for us priests, when we read about these things. So that's another thing to pray, that priests, I think, get really demoralized. I remember a priest telling me already 20 years ago, he says, I don't want to wear my clerics anymore in public because I'm afraid they're going to look at me and think I'm a pedophile, I thought, wow, I didn't feel that personally myself, but that's how he felt. He felt that everybody was going to be judging him, and again, without belittling these very serious, legitimate cases, we know, too, the media has a way of somehow making this look as if this is only a Catholic problem, and only a problem among priests, right? And that's not true. But still, you could say we are called to a higher standard, and we haven't been fulfilling that. Although, again, percentage-wise, we're not talking about huge percentages, but when you talk about thousands and thousands and thousands of priests over 50 years, then even if it's 2% of the priests, that still adds up to a lot of scandal that really rips at the garment of the Lord's body, and so this is part of the crisis of the priesthood we're facing today, and this again, where the role of a spiritual mother comes in to intercede, to make reparation, to be a spiritual support, like with our Blessed Mother, through our Blessed Mother, for the priesthood, for the sake of the church. So you could see we need intercession like never before. And we need intercession for the whole church, you could say. But at the center of that, if the priesthood isn't strong and healthy, the church will not be strong, right? So yes, it's not saying the church is all just the priesthood. No, but the priesthood is essential. It's a key element, and this is where your role as spiritual mothers comes in. If that's your call, if you're sensing the Spirit putting that on your heart, if you love the church, if you've been involved in the church, if you love the priesthood, and I have a feeling many of you here, that's why you're here. You've been involved for many years. You've been serving the Lord. You know many priests personally. Maybe you've seen the priests struggle, right? Maybe you're friends with some of these priests. And so you realize, oh my gosh, these guys need support. They need our prayers. And so that's what this call is all about.